The European Union announced a 4.7 billion euro investment pact with South Africa to help support its energy transition. The funding was revealed by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in Cape Town yesterday, just days after the US withdrew from a $1 billion energy transition partnership with South Africa. President Cyril Ramaphosa welcomed the EU support, saying it would aid key investment projects. Economist Redge Nkosi joins us for further discussion on this. A very good evening to you, Redge. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak to us about this. Now, 4.5 billion euros, that's quite a bit of money. What should we make of this pact, also on the back of a US presidency by Trump?
It's a quite interesting coincidence. Good evening. Yeah, well, firstly, indeed, there's this discussion now that South Africa and the EU have now entered into an arrangement where they will begin to discuss, to negotiate on this 4.7 billion euros of investment into the country. I think 300 of it, almost $303 million or euros, are likely to be in grants. The rest is going to be in loans to South Africa at a rate that will be determined by the negotiating parties. But firstly, let's just reflect where this comes from, because there's sort of coincidence with the Trump sayings pulling out of the jet arrangement of the 8.5 billion that we heard about a while ago. It actually started 4 years ago. Now, this current issue started in Rio in 2024. The G20 Rio de Janeiro in Brazil is when this matter was discussed between President Cyril Ramaphosa and Ursula von der Leyen, the EU head. And they're going to continue this discussion right up to the G20 of Pretoria or South Africa in November this year. This is the first issue of what the Europeans see as a next generation of partnerships between the EU and, to a large extent, only developing countries. So South Africa is going to be the first person, if you want, first country to enter into such an arrangement, which to a large extent only deals with renewable energy. Of course, there's an element of the manufacture of vaccines, but that's quite little. It's about 700 million euros. Now, the question that I think we must ask is it a good deal? Will Africa benefit from it? In my own assessment, given the history of all these deals, I'm afraid South Africa is likely to be a country that will enjoy very little of this investment, very little benefit from this investment. And that the president has decided to go along this route, it's up to him. I think the prerogative lies with him, but I'm afraid it's not going to yield as much as he thinks it will. So the red flags right across.
And touching on those red flags as well, you also started off by also distinguishing between that there'll be grants and there'll be loans as well. So with the loans in particular, nothing to celebrate too soon, because we know that that could also leave a country in a bind. But going back to the question of, is this a good deal? It was Ursula von der Leyen who was saying, at the announcement, who said that this deal is in both our interests. Is it in both South Africa's interest and the EU's, or who does it benefit more?
Well, academics have been looking at some of such deals for quite a while now, including the Namibia hydrogen deal. This is really going to be a hydrogen deal, and ascertaining whether Africa, or any developing country for that matter, that enters in such a deal will benefit. But we know very well that's not the case, that Africa or South Africa will benefit from this deal. That's quite a few reasons here. These are loans, all right, that come at a considerable cost to Africa and South Africa. Second, the rules of the game are new, okay, and we are the first target. I repeat, South Africa is the first target of this clean trade and investment partnership. The rules are going to be written in Europe, and South Africa has no capacity whatsoever, insofar as we know, to counter any aspect of these rules that are coming there. And to us, we also think that what the Europeans are doing here, we are being used as an extension, we meaning South Africa or Africa as a whole, or any other developing country that enters into such an arrangement, we're going to be used as an extension of the industrial policy. So in other words, while we may be thinking that this is going to help our industrialization program here, it won't. In fact, it's going to help the European industrialization program out there. Apart from that, there are elements of what we call de-risking of investment. What South Africa is going to do here is going to remove all risks to the deal. All right? And those risks are going to be removed and thrown onto the citizens of this country. Europe will be riding over a freeway as to way to their bank. So there are lots of disadvantages, and to think that South Africa is going to benefit is a pipe dream. And quite frankly, South Africa has to be very, very careful, because analysts, economists of today do understand very well what's happening in Europe and how Europe wants to secure its critical raw materials from South Africa and Africa. So this issue is essentially about the critical raw minerals that are here in South Africa and in some other developing countries for the purpose of Europe, not for the purpose of Pretoria at all. And if Pretoria thinks this is a good deal, I'm afraid that they're fooling themselves.
And just quickly, before I let you go, if you could briefly explain you've spoken about the repercussions of being the guinea pig, essentially, but also when the relationship between the United States right now and the EU is obviously in tatters, as we've seen. Is South Africa also being used as a pawn in that geopolitical battle?
Well, firstly, the Europeans are quite aware that South Africa, as it stands, has some bad blood, if you want, with the US, all right, today as we speak. And they're trying to come here to Pretoria with a view of being seen as the good person against the US, which US is actually locking the EU in some very acrimonious relationship. All right. So they want to benefit from us as if they're good boys or they're good guys, because the US is the bad boy. They've unplugged, some funds from South Africa and so on. So the EU is saying we're going to help. There's no help whatsoever. There's absolutely no help whatsoever. What this deal is all about is neo-colonization of South Africa, and that Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of this country, is going into it, and he's even accepted that he should be the guinea pig of it, should boggle our minds. I mean, scholars, like I said, have had a look at these issues. Quite frankly, they're not as happy as the president and in fact, government appear to be. So we're in a bind, as you said, and we're likely to be in a bind. But remember, it's not a bind for 1 year. It's a bind for many, many years to come. So generations of our people are going to be enslaved by this deal, to the extent that we shall be serving Europe, not serving South Africa. And quite frankly, this is the case that we should worry.
Really, really appreciate your insights on this topic. Really important indeed. Appreciate your time. That's Economist Redge Nkosi, as we're speaking about those economic relationships between the EU and South Africa.